Good morning. We have an opening card today of the Eight of Cups. Our challenge today is the Eight of Wands. The way we're going to get through the challenge is the Judgment card, and then the overall outcome that we have for the day is the Ace of Cups. So, we're working with some cycles, and ultimately we're transforming some aspect of ourselves to open us up to something new. And consider that right now, Pluto is been in a close proximity to the conjunction of Venus and Mars in our sky. And so because of that, there's been a lot of transformation in the realm of how we become motivated to move towards things and what we need to work with and shift and transform in our relationships as well, because we have these two energies of Mars and Venus together, and they've been like passing through the gauntlet of Pluto, which is interesting to me because this card, actually, the Judgment card, represents Pluto and transformation. So I think that's kind of cool that this card showed up today. This opening card that we have as the Eight of Cups, we can see that there's these two stacks of cups in this card. We have a stack of 3 and a stack of 5. And the person in this card looks like they're walking away from these cups into the mountains. And so this is reflective of something that we may be doing today. Like we're walking away from some situation or some experience rather than kind of being stuck in this kind of dualistic way of like, is this going to cause me pleasure or pain? We see the cycles in it, and that it's just not useful for us to be in that dynamic anymore. And so we're quite literally just like abandoning an emotional situation and like walking away from it, much like the person is doing in this card. The challenge that we have for today is this Eight of Wands energy. So these are both eights, and they're speaking to cycles that we're working with. Now, the Eight of Wands energy is a little different than the Eight of Cups in that it's speaking to new developments and things that are just like up in the air. And we can see that because there's literally 8 wands up in the air, but it's like conversations could be coming in, there could be changes to a situation, and it's a challenge for us because we want stability. We want things to be known, and they're just not. And so things are in motion, and that is something that we're working today. And it really is something that we need to keep in mind, in that as certain as we are in how a situation is in this moment, it will be a little bit different 10 minutes from now. It'll be even more different an hour from now. It could be exponentially different a few days from now. And so we need to consider how fast the energy of fire can move when it has great wind, and so this is speaking to some kind of possible conversation coming in today that could put things up in the air. Now, the way that we're going to get through the challenge is the card that I had mentioned a little bit earlier in the beginning of the video, this Judgment card, which is the energy of Pluto. And in this card, we see these 3 people who are coming out of what looks like these, rectangular shaped confined areas that are resembling somewhat of a coffin. So we see that there's some kind of darkness, some unknown factor that we're starting to realize. There's also this thing that's coming in, which is interesting because of what I'd mentioned around that energy of Venus and Mars working together with Pluto. It's like this, the ideals that we have around relationship and where we put ourselves out in life are going through this kind of gauntlet. It's like going through a kiln or something, because there's a firing process, and it changes the form of something, right? Like if you are a potter and you put something that you create, like my friend makes these beautiful stoneware mugs and bowls, and when you're working with it, it's soft and it's malleable, but then you put it in the kiln and you put it through that firing process, and it becomes hardened, and it becomes something that is like an actual vessel that can carry something. that hopefully we can, you know, enjoy life with. And yet this is kind of what we've been going through in the realms of our life that are speaking to our relationships, our partnerships, our exchanges with people in our community, our relationship with ourselves, as well as like how well we take care of our, you know, in home environment and our finances and all of the things that we do to take care of ourselves, which is Venus and our value system. And then we also have Mars, which is this energy of like a warrior energy that's like, oh my God, there's chaos on the battlefield and I need to go in and create order in this space. So we have these two energies and they're going through this like firing process of Pluto, which is quite literally transformative, because it's like seeing what no longer serves you in the path you're actually moving toward, and it brings up like things that we need to walk away from in order to actually, like, it's like we see where we've been holding ourselves back. And we see that there's like this like calling energy to this card. It's like your higher self is calling you to be something greater than what you've known yourself to be. And it's so tricky, you know, like yesterday I had shared that I've been in this like really intense emotional space, and in our world, you know, especially in our culture in here in the good old US of A, we have this conditioning around like labeling emotions as bad or as weakness, or, you know, like emoting has like this negative connotation to it. And yet we evolved to be emotional beings, and we evolved to be compassionate and empathetic, hopefully, for one another, although some people aren't very empathetic. And yet, like, this is how we know where people are at, and this like hits something deeper inside of us and allows us this space to see where we're connected and what we need to work through and all of these things. But if society has put this like imprint on emotions as being bad or weak or negative or whatever, which is kind of ridiculous, because, you know, there's a huge spectrum of like hundreds of different emotions, and they're not saying that joy is bad, and they're not saying that happiness is bad, but sadness is, or you know, God forbid anyone actually feels anything that makes someone else feel for their situation. God forbid, right? And yet that's something that we have to work with, because when we feel this like welling up of emotion in us, we could, you know, turn the critical eye to ourselves and be like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, and like, I just feel a lot, man. But if we're looking down on ourselves for feeling things, it's a little strange, because we were wired this way. And of course you're going to feel things because you're a mammal. Sorry. You know, but there's this realization here. It's like we're being called out of this space that feels overwhelmed and hurt and isolated, and we're being called into something greater. We're being called into a new experience. And in that experience, we have to let some of the things wash away, kind of like, you know, barnacles that are like attached to you or something. Which brings me to this final card, which is the Ace of Cups. And this Ace of Cups is like, our heart is open again. Our heart is needing to be open to new experiences and to be available, right? Because when we're in this space where we've just been like, screw it all, we're not available. We're shut down. We have like this cap on our cup. But it's important for our cup to remain open. And it's important to consider that, yeah, we're going to be vulnerable, you know, in sharing ourselves. And yet, one thing that I want to convey, and hopefully there's been some level of percolation of this in my readings, but, you know, when we share who we are with other people, it allows people to know that they're in a safe space to share who they are. And that's one of the greatest gifts of exchange that we can give to each other, rather than judgment or, you know, labeling somebody as like this way or that way, or they have this condition or this diagnosis or whatever. Like, can we just be open with one another? That's, I think, what we're here to do. So I ask you what's in your cup and what you bring to the table, because I think we all have something valuable to share. I send you a good wish today. Keep your heart open. I send a lot of love to you. Bye for now.